What is Athens Ave? Athens Ave is a hangout where the body of Christ can come and wrestle with our witness in the world that is becoming increasingly intolerant to our presence, to our position, and most of all, the praise to our God. What is Athens Ave? It's where we give a biblical worldview on life and ministry and seek to courageously respond to it as it's happening. You never know who you might see on Athens Ave. On Athens Ave, you're going to hear gossip in the pew. You're going to hear a fight in this corner. And on Athens Ave, we'll provide wisdom from the men of Issachar. It's always going down on Athens Ave. Make sure you make it right on Athens Ave. All right, welcome back, everyone, to another great episode of Athens Avenue. I hope you
Welcome
guys,
to the
yes, I hope you guys are enjoying this podcast so far. And if you haven't already caught up, find us on YouTube, okay, at Athens Avenue Podcast. Make sure you look for us. And if anything changes, like URLs and all those things, because change is constant, we're going to keep you posted. But we want you to find us on Spotify. We want you to find us on Facebook. Where else are we at? Oh, and Instagram. Make sure you follow us on Instagram too. We want to hear your feedback. So welcome. How are you today, Dr. LA?
I'm great. I'm great. I'm great. Glad to be back on Athens Ave. This is where I kind of hang out. So I look forward to this. I thought episode one was just a blast. I'm
It
hyped for
was.
episode two. I'm ready for this, man.
Me too. Oh my goodness. So, if y'all had saw the first episode, y'all know that I'm all about, being in the pew. What happens in the pew? You talk too much, you may get in trouble for eating candy. But there's a little chatter going on. So I just want to bring something up real quick. Jamal Bryant wants his church to grow cannabis and to teach Black men to legally farm it. That is what's happening. I haven't seen this retracted. I haven't seen any evidence that Dr. Pastor, Reverend, whatever he is at this point, Jamal Bryant has retracted this little bit of information. It is still a thing. So I actually wanted to get some other perspectives. So I'm going to let Dr. Anderson come on up. Not to put you
Ah,
on the spot, but to put you on
mhm.
the spot. What say ye, man of God?
Well, I'm not going to comment on Jamal Bryant
Okay, of course
uh,
not. Okay,
as a person, as an individual, as a
of
preacher.
course not.
I'm gonna comment on the idea itself.
Okay,
I think teaching Black men or any men for that matter some way of earning income in a legal way is a good thing. I think there's many other things that are farmed and can grow. In order to do that, I don't think it has to be cannabis. I think
really?
sometimes the spotlight, sometimes the topic, sometimes the clickbait. I remember I think it was Bobby Brown that said any publicity is good publicity, even if it's bad publicity.
Hmm.
Sometimes, things just are said, and I don't know if it's really a real desire or intent, or if it's meant to do what's happening right now, us talking about it. I don't know.
Right.
And so I would, my comment would be, it's great to teach men how to do things and how to farm and how to harvest. And, that's great. But to do it with a product that we know alters your mind and your behavior, I am not in favor of that as an idea, whether or not marijuana is legal or not. Your
Okay.
body is still a temple. It still has an effect on you. Those who taking it for quote unquote medicinal
I was
purposes.
about to I was about to ask that question because there are some people who had this medically
Oh, absolutely,
prescribed to them for,
absolutely.
and they need to take their medicinal marijuana. And I think this is where his idea was, when you hear him talk about it, one of those things is, it's for medicinal purposes in Atlanta, Georgia. You know, that is what he's trying to do. He's not trying to do it for any other reason.
I hear you. And so those who take marijuana for medicinal purposes, I have no problem with that. And when marijuana
Okay.
go legal, I mean, to me, it's just like, when prohibition and alcohol was legal,
Hmm.
you know, again, just because it's legal don't mean it's beneficial.
Right. Okay.
And
Okay.
so it being legal don't mean that it's necessarily just a good thing or good for you. But again, for me, always being able to give a reason for the hope that you have. And it's hard to do that when you got the munchies and you're talking like
Oh
this.
my
Right?
God.
It's just hard to do that sometimes.
Now I think I'm gonna get Pastor Ricky to come in and try. Cause plus, y'all seen the first episode, and y'all gonna be with us for a while, okay? Y'all know Pastor Ricky always got something funny to say. So let me see if he gonna be serious and funny. Come on, what you got to say?
Um,
Oh my
let me
gosh,
let me first
I need
start.
to change my topics.
Well,
Oh,
as Dr. LA, I'm not going to talk about the preacher,
Okay,
but
good.
I think it's a good idea to help someone, not just Black men, into the field of entrepreneurship. And we know there are other things that can be grown, vegetables and so forth. And if I was the pastor and I was going to venture out into that, I would have to take myself through some serious lessons. Will our good be evil spoken of by doing this? And if that's the case, then we don't want to bring shame to his name. But then on the other hand, you'll have other people say, well, the Lord created the herbs and the
I was going to
spices
say that. I mean,
for
it
this,
grows.
and it
Uh-huh.
grows whether you plant it or not.
Hmm.
Uh, and I understand that, but in this day and age, we want to just be careful that we're taking what we use as a good term, being relevant, to going a little bit overboard. That now we got people hooked and addicted, and now we got another issue to address. And then
Mm.
you can't, we having a trouble just hooking Christians up to being thoroughly and 100% committed to Christ. Why do we want
Facts.
to do that? That's just my view. Um, Now our church, we have about 23 acres of land, and I don't know if Dr. Bryant
Okay.
would buy some of our acreage. You know, hey,
What?
but
So
I'm gonna
what?
leave that
What
alone.
if he wanted to use your acreage for his other medicinal weed plant
I wouldn't
situation?
ask him what is he wanting to buy it for. The land is available. He
will
has
you stop,
7 acres.
man? Will you just stop?
Okay, thank you for coming in and joining us. I'm
Why'd
telling
you
you,
bring him in
I
here?
don't know why I brought him in here because he loves to hang out on the app. Everybody wants to hang out on the app. I don't know
Yeah, I
why I
hear
did
you.
that
I
to
hear you.
myself.
I don't either.
So I just want to get right into our next segment called In This Corner. Okay, that's when Dr. LA and Pastor Ricky, they give some good explanation to why they're on this side or the other. And for today, we are talking about the senior pastor. Should the senior pastor preach 90% of the Sundays?
In this corner. In this corner.
Well, we both senior pastors, but I have probably a vastly different opinion on this one than you. I know how important it is for me to communicate God's word to the people who show up, who come to Great Commission Church to look to hear me speak. But I believe if you have others within your congregation that is able, right? If you don't, then this is impossible. But if it's able, if you have potential preachers, they should be preaching. The only way you learn how to preach is by preaching. And many times I think in a church is about who's the best preacher. And the best preacher is the one who preaches all the time, which is normally the senior pastor. And so therefore churches become more man-centered than God-centered when the only voice they hear is that of the senior pastor. And so they hear him speak the word of God more than they hear God speak the word of God, because we have so many people who don't read their Bibles, don't open their Bible, biblically illiterate. So when they go to read the word, they hear his voice, because that's the only voice they normally hear when it comes to preaching. And so I believe that we really have to evaluate our calling, whether or not we've been called to be preachers or we've been called to be pastors. Because I think if you preaching 90% of the time, right? Many times, the preparation it takes to do that takes up 90% of your time, and that leaves you with little time available to actually pastor. Pastor is so much more than preaching on a Sunday. Those are my opening jabs.
Well, I appreciate what you shared, Pastor Anderson, but I would like to give you an alternate perspective on that. In my perspective, I pastor Christian Faith Fellowship, and I believe that the pastor should be, at least in the first 10, 12 years, putting in 90% of the preaching for this reason, because you want to set the tone for people following after you. You have to give an account for the flock that the Lord has made you overseer of. It's not the associates and all those. In truth, God did not call you he called you the pastor, but what comes with the pastor, it is the preaching. And as Ephesians says, we equip the saints to do the work of the ministry. So the visitation and all that is the bonus for us. But in our preaching and our teaching, we're equipping them to do it. So I think we do a disservice to our congregation when, as the pastor, we are getting paid to pastor and we preach 50% of the time. So that means we should give back the other 50% of the money.
Interesting. I think that's totally nonsense. I'm gonna just be, now here. I don't believe we actually get paid to preach. I believe we get paid to pastor. Preaching is a part of the process. But what we do, we don't do it for the compensation. We do it for the calling, and the one who called us. And so, if you think you're paying me to preach, then you misunderstood what my calling was and what your compensation is for. Now, for me, I think we actually do our own souls a disservice when we're always preparing a message for somebody else. I think it helps when we can read the word of God without it being a tool to be ministered to somebody else, number one. Number two, I think it's important that we schedule respites where we get to sit and hear a word just as much as we give a word. If I'm discipling those assistant pastors that I have with me, those ministers, those preachers, by giving them opportunity, by giving them feedback, now I'm discipling and I'm demonstrating that discipleship. I'm demonstrating that I'm willing to share this pulpit, to share this leadership, and you're seeing preachers grow. I got 4 men who I share a pulpit with. They all got different personalities, different giftedness, and they all bring something different to the body of Christ. We lean into those gifts. We lean into those strengths that people have, and we give them opportunities to do that. And so hearing from me, I believe 90% of the time limit what I'm actually giving my people because they're only getting it from one source. That's my counterpunch.
Well, I hear you, and I can say that sounds good, but I don't think it's idealistic, because I think that in anything there needs to be balance. I think there needs to be balance. Casting the vision and being on point, I think that needs to come from that senior pastor. And I think even to the degree if I give opportunity for a associate to preach, it's a privilege, not a responsibility. I don't think that associate should expect to preach all the time, because we can create platforms for them to preach. We can make them a Bible study leader. We can make them the prison ministry person. We can tell them, hey, there's street corners. So opportunities to preach there are a plethora of places where that can be done. But I'm thinking, and as I'm saying, that as the pastor of the church, I believe 90%, because you're setting the tone, the direction, and even the respites can be a part of the journey, because the pastor needs to maintain some level of balance. And then he can say, every quarter, I'll preach 10 weeks a quarter and give way. I can do that, but it's still that 90%, I believe, should rest on that pastor to communicate. And you can look with that smug look all you want, but I think
Oh,
I think it's important that pastor lays it down, and even to the degree that he can even broaden it by saying, hey, associates, I'm going to invite you into my sermon prep room so you can hear, understand, and see what and where I'm going based on how I sense the Lord is leading. I think it's important. That's
well,
my view.
I hear you, and I appreciate that. And I don't know if you had to try to come at me personally with the smug
No,
look,
no,
but
nothing personal, nothing personal.
but what I would say is I already collaborate. I have my those who preach with me. We send each other our sermons. Hey, what is your thoughts on this? What do you think about this? Anything you would add to this? Any way you would approach this differently? So it's already a collaborative effort. There's an upper
Crazy.
room movement that we do, so that the word that comes out of that pulpit is the best word that can come out. And so it has my opinion, your opinion, his opinion, to help bring out what's the best, to show that no, we're not competing. We building one another up, giving up one another opportunity. And yeah, I agree. You can do a men's breakfast, you can do other spots, but it's something about when we create this platform of Sunday morning pulpit pedestal, that you're good enough for prison ministry, you're good enough for a men's breakfast, but you're not really good enough yet for the Sunday sermon. That's something that I have an issue with, and I think I can communicate vision without having to preach 90% of the time. Well, we might want to ask this question to pastors' wives: how many of you would prefer if your husband preach, or wife preach 90% of the time?
Get somebody else to do it.
But for me,
Right.
it takes the spotlight off of, honestly, the pulpit ministry and puts it back on, for me, the shepherding ministry, which I actually make the pulpit a part of the shepherding field, as a part of looking at the pulpit as being above the shepherding piece of pastoring.
Okay, I can appreciate that. And if I were to ask my wife, she probably would say, take a break. But I think it's apropos that as we build up, and I commend you for having the collaboration with your associates, but not all of us came out of that school of education, and because nothing against the school I went to, it was drive that word and you the leader. And so I've kind of taken that to heart. And I think that 90% needs to come from that pastor, so that he's going to give an account for it. Shoot, you got to be in the front.
Oh my goodness. Ding, ding, ding. This was so good. I was in the back, like, oh my goodness, go at it. But you brought a very good perspective up there. And I'm not saying who I agree with or disagree with, because I love us all. But I would lean more towards one than the other. And I'm glad that you put the perspective of your children out there and your wife, right? Because that is your first ministry, right? So it's God, your family, and then everything else. Even though you are pastors of churches, we are, leading the people. If our marriage is not intact, that is
Talk about it. Talk about it.
So I thought I liked what you said about that. Like, I have to take a break, because if not for anything else, but to be fed, but also to be the shepherd of, like, my actual house,
House.
you know,
Yeah,
my
yeah, yeah,
kids and
yeah,
all
yeah.
those things. So, and I love the difference between the age, you know, you bought that in because this is a different generation, right? And I'm
Mhm.
sure if we get someone that's younger than me, even their opinions would be different. So please put your opinions about this topic in the comment section. We want to hear them. We
Yeah,
want you to
these gonna be some
participate.
interesting comments on this one right
Oh
here.
my
I know it
goodness.
will.
I want to see what these gonna be here.
We're going to bring in my other big brother, okay? Dr. Kyle Canty, Pastor Canty. He has a lot of nicknames. I don't know if I'm allowed to give them all. But this segment, if you
Oh,
guys are
my favorite is the Canty Man.
the Canty Man. All right, yeah, we can say it. We can say it. Okay, cool. Because I like that one. I like Candy Man like the better. I
Uh-huh.
like that's like my favorite one, Candy Man.
Uh-huh.
But this is our Minute Issachar segment. And listen, we have two powerful pastors that are going to just pour into you and talk to you about different topics. And for this week, we're talking about how you can develop a missional vision for your church community.
Men of Issachar.
So when we talk about developing a vision, a missional vision for the church community, what's the first thing that come to your mind with that?
Well, I kind of, when I thought about that question and that topic, I thought about the reality and the fact that so many of our churches don't have that. Like there are very cookie cutter, unimaginative vision statements that churches have for their community. And so it is like some churches will just have a scripture verse. And I'm not saying that anything that's not sinful or anything like that. But when you talk about vision and mission, and you talk about a vision, a missional vision, you're talking about really how do you build a culture in a place? How do you move a congregation, move a group of people within a given context to reach that context, to fulfill that John 20:21, as the Father has sent me, so I am sending you, that it's on us as the people of God to fulfill. So how do we do that contextually?
Well, I agree. I think, it's impossible to reach people if you don't know people. I think it's so important that you have to know who it is that you're trying to reach. You got to know the needs of those who you are trying to serve. And so I think so many times because of and this is the arrogance of North America, this is the ignorance of the church, that so many times we give the community what we want to give them as opposed to what they need, right? And so we don't develop a missional vision because we don't do the research. We know our goal is to get you in church, to get you saved, to get you discipled. That's our goal. Many times we don't realize that's not their goal, right? Their goal might be, my son just got murdered. My goal is to make it to tomorrow, right? So they need healing. And so if you understand what the violence and the crime rate is, the murder rate, hey, maybe I need to develop a grief ministry and start where these people are. We learned during COVID how many people was food deprived. We know about communities in food deserts. And so we didn't do a food pantry because we decided, hey, we just want to give away food. No, we recognized there was a need for food in order for people to survive. And so you develop something based on what they need. And when that need is no longer there, it's okay to actually shut that down and figure out what the next need is. So this idea of developing a missional vision for a community, I think it got to start with knowing them and knowing what they need.
That's huge. And I think sometimes churches are probably a little scared to do that. There's some fear of those people out there. But I think that kind of reveals a need that, we need to look into the pages of scripture to see actually how Jesus ministered and to see some of the examples and principles we pull out from the incarnation of Christ, that he came from heaven to earth, put on flesh, humbled himself, and came to a people within a given place. And he experienced those people. He learned them and loved them And one of the things I think that fear of getting to know the people and being with them, having some proximity to the people within a given community or context is fearful for a lot of churches and church leaders. I think if we can get over that fear of the unknown, I think more pastors or leaders within churches will see, man, I need to get to know the people that I'm serving. I need to listen. I need to be a listener for a period of time. And I need to learn who they are. I need to be able to learn culture. And so in many ways, an anthropologist, a sociologist, there's a book, and I know you're familiar with this book by David Livermore, talking about cultural intelligence, developing your CQ. And I think I think that's something, because missionaries do this. Missionaries on the foreign field do this, but necessarily we don't see the need to do that on this side locally. That we may think we know the people that are in our communities, but the reality is that we live in a global and a local. Like there are people who are coming from afar into our communities, and what you grew up with in the 80s and 90s is just no more. It's different, especially in Philly.
So many times we just invite them and want them to come into the building, and we don't go out to where they are, right? And so, see, to me, this is where the adopting the school kind of thing comes in at, you might not ever get these kids to walk into your church, but you have an opportunity to walk into their school, developing symbiotic partnerships and relationships with entities within your community where you actually go there, right? You know what I mean? Not is always you trying to get them to come to your house. What about you coming to my house? What about you coming there? And we got to want to, I think, love them, not just sit beside them, right?
Yeah.
This idea of, at the end of the day, is our goal to have them sit in a seat beside us, was at the end of the day, we got to go to love them and to lead them and to nurture them and to equip them and to send them back out to do the exact same thing for them that we just did for them to do to others. And so I think it's so important that we recognize it's not just about developing a numerical strategy, if you will. So we're not talking about just how do you grow as a church? How do you just get bigger as a church? We're talking about how do you develop a mission to be the actual extension of who God called us to be living epistles out in that world, as you just said, as the Father sent me, so I'm sending you, right? So this idea that if he sacrificed his life for us, we got to ask ourselves, as we develop this, are they coming into a time capsule when they walk into our buildings, right? You know what I mean? Like what else do we have to sacrifice? A part of our comfort zone, a part of our tradition, right? In order, once you do all of this stuff to reach them and bring them in, what are you bringing them into?
Yeah, I think you bring up an excellent point. Like, what are you bringing them into? And, again, leaders and churches got to think through this as you consider what a vision to reach that context will look like. And we pointed to, you pointed to John 1:14, and we looked at John 20:21. And in going, Matthew 28:18-20, go. Like, the process of going means you're leaving familiar to the unfamiliar, if you look through Acts. And even Athens. We talk about Athens, like Paul did some quick and dirty on the ground community exegesis as he went through Athens and identified certain things. He did some study. He put some time in, and it's going to be difficult to transition a church, that may have a cookie cutter vision or unimaginative vision of how to reach their context, to develop a vision for reaching, a missional vision for reaching where they're at as they see pages in scripture. You're going to get some resistance. People are going to struggle with that. But I think we live in a climate and a day and time in which I don't know that we have a choice to remain the same or to change our vision to be more like Christ, to revisit the Christ-centered missional vision for the world.
Absolutely. It's interesting. I remember training in church, and we was doing a prayer walk, and we're going out, and they love it on their community. They was trying to reach their community, trying to talk to their community. But then when I went back to the edifice to see how they did church, I said, the way you did church, it just, you went out to where they were, I said, but the leap from where they are to where
Back in
y'all
it.
are, I said, that's just too huge of a leap. Like y'all had to bring back, like they had so many things that only church people understood.
Understood.
I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know anybody outside of church who heard the word doxology. You
Yeah.
know, I like there's certain things that they just had that they just did that I said if somebody came in, they would not understand, when to
What you're
stand and
talking.
when to sit and what to do and what this meant, what was next. They would
Hmm.
not understand that. You're using a version of the Bible that they can't hear, they can't understand. Because they're hearing words that was written in 1600.
Yeah.
And again,
Yeah.
this is not a knock on if that's where you are, but if you're trying to reach
The
the
context.
person of this context and this day and this time and this way, then you got to figure out, are we using the best tools, the best strategy, the best music? Everything that we do has to come under evaluation. Again, not talking about changing, content. I
Exactly.
mean? We're
Yeah.
not talking about changing message. We're talking
Yeah.
about changing methodologies, changing as you would say, the cosmetics
Yes.
surrounding the word, not changing the word in
Exactly.
order to develop a missional vision for your community.
Our cities are at a point where we really need to reevaluate our vision statements, our the thrust behind why we do ministry, and because it's a different day and time. And we got that same gospel. Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. But
Yeah.
again, we see him doing some unique things in the gospels, and why not just reference the gospels when we find out how to do ministry?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I
Amen.
think to end on that, like we can't keep saying that we want the world to change. We want violence to change. We want the conditions of our community to change. And yet we're the only ones who are not
We're
willing
willing to
to
change.
actually make the changes necessary to
Yeah,
reach them. Yo,
yeah,
thank you, man. I appreciate your
definitely.
insight and your input here on this Minute Issachar segment, man. I love when we have a chance to just chop it up and try to help build up
Definitely.
the church, man. So
Yeah,
appreciate you for that.
definitely. Same here. Looking for the next time. Yeah. Yep.
I love it. I saw Pastor Ricky in the back, just kind of giving some pounds up. Y'all are so
Yeah.
educated. I love it. I love to hear you guys talk and educate us. Seriously, it's so important. What did you want to put in, Pastor Ricky?
Oh, I just wanted to commend the brothers. I appreciate everything that's said. And we are on mission as members of the body of Christ. Our mission is our house, our neighborhood, our street, our block, our job. Even when we go on vacation, we are still
We're
on
on mission.
mission. Yeah. And it's important to know. We evangelize and we do it as we go.
Even
Thank
on
y'all for that
vacation?
refresh. Yeah, even on
Even on
vacation.
vacation.
Are we taking him out? We taking him out. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
PK.
Yeah.
Thank you, PK. Thank you. But that was just such a dynamic segment, and we do appreciate you. We are going to take a quick commercial break, and we will be right back.
Yesterday, a man came up to me following service to tell me he's been out of church for years. Somebody told him to read the pastor's diaries. He got a chance to hear situations that he dealt with but never understood from the pastor's perspective. It changed his heart, it softened his heart, and it brought him back to church. In the pastor's diary, you hear about the pressure and the pain, the power and the pride, the pedestal and the perseverance that pastors deal with and go through. Their passion of why they do what they do. It's easy as a pastor to have this Elijah complex, like you're the only one going through things. And it's easy when you're in the pulpit to look at the pastor and have such a judgmental perspective on them because they're on such a pedestal. The pastor's diary is meant to bring all of that together in one place where myself, along with 26 other pastors, give an intimate look behind the pulpit. The pastor's diaries. It's here for you. It's here for the body. It's here to bring some healing and some reconciliation. Get your copy today. But the pastor's diaries deal with the pressure of pastors and the pain and all of that, the power struggles, things that we actually go through that we don't share. And so most of our congregations have no clue about the weight that we have on our shoulders and what we deal with and our insecurities, our mistakes, things that the Lord challenges and convicts us of. And so, our passions and how we persevere through so many difficult things. Because even
Right.
in the pulpit, you losing your parents, or you can lose your children, you can lose your spouse, and
Right.
yet you still got to persevere on. People still expecting you to be game on for them in spite of what's going on in your life. I had to battle cancer twice in my ministry over the last,
Wait. We're not going to just gloss over that because then it gets me emotional. This man just said I had to battle cancer twice. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah,
I
no,
wish I had an organ. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
but yeah, and
Thank you,
yet,
God.
still people waiting on me to call them and care for them and love on
Wow.
them. And then you think about who wasn't there for you when you were going through, and then you still got to come out better versus bitter. So
Wow.
it's so much of that we go through that people don't get. And so the Pastor's Diaries kind of reveal a lot of that from my own perspective. But then I got 26 others, including everybody that's on their show,
I know. I was
that
like,
kind
all
of
of us.
give their experience and shares just a part of them in this book. And so I think it's just great for pastors. It's great for the body to really be able to hear and see that intimate look behind the pulpit.
Bitter versus better testimony, how we overcome. I mean, that testimony you just gave that, we don't have time to just unpack everything you said, but yes, I am looking forward to, and I want to hear from our audience. I would love to hear a pastor's wives rendition or a spouse, right? I would love to have that book. Did you ever think about that perspective or?
Well, I've been asked to do that, and I'm
Okay.
I'm looking to do that. But right now, the Pastor's Diary has its own life and its
Okay.
own demands, and so I have not been able to sit down and get that together just yet. But yes, it has been asked about. It has been thought about. There's a contract on the table for it, so we'll see how we move forward with that. All
Okay,
right,
I'm
I'll
looking
leave that right there.
forward to that. Leave it right there. So, right now, guys, we are going to head over to the spot. We sat down with a young lady. She is so dynamic. Okay.
Mm.
I'm telling you right now, Courtney Lynee is an actor, she's a director, she's a vocalist, she does all of the things.
Courtney Lynee.
Uh,
All
uh,
right.
okay.
So
Oh, those two
Courtney,
words,
yeah,
Courtney
yeah, yeah.
Lynee.
Lynette.
Okay.
Yeah. That's that Hollywood name, when you just
Totally
have that.
Hollywood.
Totally Hollywood. This young woman,
Okay.
is a singer, is a actress, is a director. She direct plays, she act in plays, she's done commercials. She is just a rising star.
Oh my
Some people
goodness.
you meet them and they have that it quality. She
Okay.
has the it quality.
Just
I say,
okay.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I'm glad that she took time out of her schedule to come bless us with her presence. And so let's bless our audience with her presence as well.
Come on, put your hands together.
There she go. There she go.
Hey, I'm on Athens. Listen. That's a flex for me in itself. So
Well,
thank you for having me.
welcome.
Well,
Let's go
it's
ahead
good to have you. It's good to
and
have you up in
here.
the house.
I know where I
How
need your
you doing?
digital autograph, okay? Because she's doing all of the things. I need your
Yeah.
autograph before you get
Yeah,
all of the.
she do those voiceovers too. She got the James Earl Jones thing going on. So it's like
Oh,
so dope.
listen.
Like you in the commercial, you're like, yo, is that Courtney Lynee?
That's
It's like that. She just pop up anytime.
The first question, because I'm just going to dive right into it.
all right.
As an actress, is there a line you will not cross because of your faith? So like if they want you to be nude, or if they want you to do maybe uh a scene when it's two women, how does that play into what you do? How does your faith play into what you do professionally?
So for me, I do have certain standards, things that I'm just personally not comfortable with, even outside of who I am in Christ. Um, for me, when it comes to any role, I'm looking at the story and is it important to the story? Especially when you talk about language, things like that. Does it help the story move along, or is it just there just to be there? That's one thing that's important for me, because I feel like if I'm going to tell a story, I want to tell it authentically, and I do not want to uh, compromise who I am as a believer, but on top of that, just not do things just because it's going to add that extra spice to the story. I'm not about that life. I'm not. And so with every role that I take, I pray over it. Am I supposed to be in this space? Is this meant for me? And then sometimes you're in positions, right, where you're put there for a specific reason. You know, God's funny like that. He'll do things and put you in places that you never anticipated. So there are some things sexually. I'm not really in the space to do any sex scenes, that sort of thing. That's just not my space. I'm yeah, no.
Well,
And then
I do know your dad. I do know pastoring for many years, and you growing up and being in the church and serving in the church as you do. You know, it's interesting how many major artists got their start in the church, and I say got their start in the church because it seems like when they go into the world, you know, and not doing Christian movies, but doing secular movies or whatever, and expanding whether or not it's R&B or hip hop or whatever. It seems that they don't have the support anymore of the church because they're not doing gospel music or gospel plays or gospel things. And it seems like the church can sometimes end up rejecting the very ones that they raised up. And so those people move away. I guess I want to know, like, how do you stay so spiritually grounded? How do you stay in? And what could the church do better to nurture talent so that they don't actually lose the talent, you know, from their spiritual journey while they go and pursue whatever career the Lord would open up for them?
Absolutely. That's good. And that's something that comes up a lot. I would say for me, as far as my spiritual grounding, I'm grateful for my church. Shout out to Nazarene Baptist Church, who they really helped me with my foundation. My foundation was key. And so when I went out into the world, it's interesting when you're out and you're in college or you're going other places. It's funny how sometimes being away from the church, you actually get closer to the Lord than always being in a certain space. And I think sometimes it's just about being in different areas and letting your faith be tested and seeing how much you really understood and how much you soaked in while you were in that space. Devotion is key. My circle is key. I'm a big believer in my circle and them pushing me not only business wise, but spiritually holding me accountable. So I'm grateful for that. And when it comes to the church, you know, being an actor, being a singer, here's the real. And can I be real?
Please.
That's what we do here.
The church has to start sowing into their members, people with gifts and talents. Churches don't want to pay.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
I'm gonna start there.
Yes,
Okay.
Okay.
You know, there's a lot. You know, after a while, there's only but so much a free meal or exposure can do. You know, if God has gifted me with something, why not sow into that person? You know, and yes, we all do it for the kingdom and all that kind of stuff, but people also have to put food on the table. I was the director of the choir for 8-9 years. You know, and I was recording all the parts on my own so that people could rehearse, so that we didn't have to do multiple rehearsals, and then having 3 and 4 rehearsals a month, and then having 2 services. That's a lot of time. So I think it's important for churches to recognize that just like anything else, you pay anybody else for their gift. The same thing is important there. And then also a lot of times I feel that we as believers sometimes become very judgmental when something doesn't look the way they think it should.
Okay.
And I remember the guy that I serve hung out with a bunch of different kind of people. The guy that I served did not stay within the 4 walls. The guy that I served, you know, so it's like, it's not all just about, I wasn't necessarily called to be a gospel singer, right? I wasn't called, I believe that I was called to tell stories. Right. And so a lot of times I'm big on telling stories that people are afraid to talk about. If you don't talk about the story, you can't heal the pain. You can't work through it. And so that's what my calling is, using my voice. And just because it doesn't look like what the church thinks it should look like, let's not limit God. Let's not limit what he may have called me to do. And everybody's not meant to understand my assignment.
Facts.
So I think it's very important for people to respect that and to love. Let's love. Let's get back to love. How about that? Doesn't mean we accept every old thing, but it's not everybody's responsibility either to be calling stuff out. I've seen too much of that lately, and it's like that spirit turns into anything but the love of God.
So on
Wow.
that, would you say, maybe not yourself, but does the church make artists feel guilty for their service outside of the church
Mhm.
walls? Is there a level of pressure or guilt or shaming, if you will, if these artists are pursuing careers outside of the gospel realm?
I think I've seen it a lot. It happens. It's interesting though because those same people are watching
Oh
Correct.
my,
Ah, correct. Correct.
Okay,
the
okay.
same things. It doesn't
Mm,
make sense to me.
Correct.
It's huh? How does make that make sense?
mm,
And it doesn't. And we don't want to talk about it. It's like,
okay.
oh, and I feel like we have to start being honest with ourselves. And then on top of that, I feel, and this is a whole nother situation, I feel like a lot of times within the church, we have adopted things and we call it spiritual, but they're cultural trauma responses. They
Mm,
are ways that we have learned how to get by from generations and decades ago. And we have said, this is how it's supposed to be. And it's like, let's really think about that. Is that
mm,
really what God said?
Wow.
Or is
mm.
that how we as Black people in the Black church responded to some things in the past?
Mm.
And it just got passed down through generation and generation. And all of a sudden, that's what it is. There's so
Okay.
much stuff. And I feel like we really got to start breaking down these barriers because this world is a hot mess right now.
Mm, mm.
And we need more people to be able to be in those spaces, to be that
Okay.
light. I want to be a light out no matter where I am. I want who I am, and I want the God in me to shine through.
As a PK, you live in that proverbial fishbowl. You've always been watched and seen,
Mhm.
but nevertheless, I think I probably know you for about 20 years. I've been watching you. You always seem to have this comfort level in your own skin. And I want to know, like, did that come over a period of time? Did being in the fishbowl help you be in front of the camera, or have you had to develop this sense of resiliency because of it? Like, how has it affected you negatively, positively to do what you do?
It's interesting you say that because I was the exact opposite.
Mhm,
Mm.
I learned how to
Okay.
hide very well.
mhm,
I learned how to play the game as a PK. I learned what to say, what not to say, when you're around all those and you have a bunch of uncle pastors and all this kind of stuff, and you see how people see you
Right.
and what they expect from you. I've had people who thought I never got spankings or I was so close. I was closer to Jesus. I was like, where do y'all be getting this stuff from? Like it's insane what people have thought. And I learned how to do that. And I had a lot of insecurities, and I
mhm,
learned how to hide to the point where my parents didn't even know what I struggled
mhm,
with.
Okay.
And being a PK was rough. It was rough for me. And then I was also the middle child. So, and because I'm outgoing, I was always seen. I was in the leadership in a lot of ways. So I feel like a lot of people couldn't handle my personality. It
mhm,
was a little too much
Okay.
light for them. And sometimes I learned how to dim my light. And it wasn't until the past few years, going through my 30s, where I really started to own who I was. And God said, you don't have to carry those burdens anymore.
mhm,
And as I went through as an actor, doing different roles and digging into myself and healing and all that kind of stuff, it really allowed me to come in to who God has called me to be. I see why God put me where he did. And even when things look negative, I choose to just find the positive in those moments and recognize that whatever somebody tries to put on me is theirs and I don't have to accept it.
That's
mhm.
good.
That's awesome.
That's
That's
good.
awesome.
I mean, listen,
Well, you've done an amazing job.
for
As
sure.
I said, as I watch from the sideline, you have it. You have talent, of course, but a certain persona that you carry in yourself that's so admirable. And so I just would say, be encouraged. You're doing an amazing job, and I know there are
Indeed.
even greater things on the horizon. Pastor Sone, I know you want to jump in with your
I know.
feedback, your comments. I'm
Listen,
a pull back from my questions now.
listen, because he'll go all day. Okay, Dr.
Yeah,
La will
I
go
love
all day.
conversations like this. Let's talk about it,
yeah.
He will go all day, but I am uberly impressed. And we were reading your bio, and I was just like, oh my goodness, she's done so many things. She has film scenes, credits including A Promise, Smudge, Dear Miss for the past 11 years. You're a vocalist. You've worked with producers such as Keith Lowry and recording artists such as Ashley Scott and our girl Carol Riddick. My husband is a producer and also a drummer, and he's played several times for Carol Riddick with David Stevens, the
Oh,
guitarist.
David Stevens,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, 'cause we're from Philly. He's like the big bro. So I saw Carol Riddick and I was like, oh, she's with the family. But one of your biggest things that I know is new, you're wearing it, but you mentioned something about voiceovers by Courtney Lynee. So before I get into my fun question, I want to know about that new venture.
All right. So I actually just launched Voiceovers by C. Lynee actually about a month ago now. And I was doing a lot of marketing things in church, and then I ended up doing the commercial advertisements, just making up these marketing videos for things at church. And then I was like, oh,
Cool.
I need to start doing this. And then I
Yeah.
did go to school as an actor and things like that. And so back in 2019, got some training and started professionally as a voiceover artist in 2020. But what I've noticed is a lot of people do not talk about voiceover work. People want that kind of access to voiceover artists, but don't know where to go to get them.
Okay.
And there's so many great Black voiceover artists that you just don't know. It's kind of like, oh, and they do voiceover work, and nobody really talks about it. And so I saw there was a hole, and I'm all about find a need and fill it. And
Love
so,
it.
outside of my professional work and doing that, I wanted to start this venture to be able to allow people, small business owners, content creators, churches, whoever, to have access to quality voiceover work. And I have a nice setup at home and just working that out. And so I wanted to start helping other businesses, not just in Philly, but all over, to get their brands out, whether it's an audiobook, whether it's commercials, whether it's, I am working in some animation, whether it's voicemails, automated systems, things like that, to have that, just that polished quality sound. And so I wanted to, I started as a full-time artist actually 7 months ago.
Oh,
I went full-time.
Congratulations.
Well, we're overly
Congratulations.
proud of you. Okay,
Thank
you out
you.
here killing it, and
Absolutely.
this Women
Yes.
History Month, so it's no better way, to celebrate than your new business.
Should
So
I
I'm
leave? Should I
excited about
leave?
that.
Should I
Oh,
leave?
I mean, well, you can. I mean, if
You
you
can
want
You know
honor.
what?
we're just honoring her.
Mhm.
Okay, so here's my fun question before we let you go.
Okay.
And I ask a weird question, so let me see. Oh, this is going to be great for you. And it doesn't have to be faith-based, okay? Because on Athens Avenue, we talk about so many things. What are your top 5? I'll give you 5. Your top 5 songs.
It doesn't have to be gospel necessarily.
No, it
Right,
can be
right,
any
right,
song.
right.
No, we listen to all kind of music here. So yeah, you're good.
Brandy. It's a song called When You Touch Me.
Oh, listen. Can we talk about that song?
Not right now. We can't.
Oh,
Mhm.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh,
Number
not on.
2.
Okay.
I love Carl Thomas. I Wish.
Yes. You're pulling them out the bag.
I'm sorry.
You're not telling your age at all with these songs.
Yes. Stevie Wonder. These 3 words. Don't cry.
That's a good Kirk song.
That one gets me every single time. He's just an amazing writer, just in general.
Legit.
The way he writes is phenomenal. Boys to Men, On Bended Knee.
Okay. Oh, you're like a romantic up in here. All of these
And
songs.
I'm a 90s girl all day.
All day, every day. You done pulled them out the bag.
Oh my gosh.
It was a pleasure getting to know you better and allowing our audience who are going to be listening to you and watching you. So we thank you so much for coming to the Ab. And this is going to be your time just to talk more about your business. We're going to, Dr. LA and I are going to get out of the shot. We want you to tell us how we can reach you, how folks can get into that new venture that you have, Voiceovers by C. Lynee, and all that good
Well,
stuff.
all right. Thank you all so much for having me. I had such a great time here. Again, my name is Courtney Lynee. I'm an actor, vocalist, director, voiceover artist. You can find me at my website, www.courtneylynee.com, for voiceover work. If you're interested in working with me and you would love to have a voice for your brand, you can find me at www.voiceoversbyclynee.com. And then I'm big on social media. So if you want to find me on Instagram, it's at I am Courtney.Lynee, as well as Facebook. I am Courtney Lynee as well. So please, please, please stay in touch with me and let's get working. I would love to work with anybody who's interested in some voiceovers. So thank you.
Awesome sauce. No, the pleasure is definitely all ours. We will see you soon and definitely have to consider some voiceover work for Athens Avenue. But thank you for joining us, Courtney. We'll see you later.
Thanks
Yeah,
so
I
much for
appreciate
having me. Thank y'all
it.
so
Hey,
much.
thanks for coming on the spot.
Oh,
Appreciate you.
always.
All
That
right.
was amazing. Okay. That was amazing. All of her information is below. You guys can get in contact with her. Dr. LA, how are you feeling about today?
Oh man, I'm loving it. With each show, I'm just loving it more and more. I'm loving what we're doing. I'm loving, I guess, I'm a fan. I'm loving, what's being talked about, what's being discussed. We needed this format. I'm just happy to be on the app.
Yes, we wanted to say thank you again for joining us as our resident co-host. Did you guys have a good time on the show today?
Yeah, it was a
Yes,
great show. It
indeed.
was a
Great,
great
great
show. It
job.
was a great
Great
show.
job.
Who says you have to go to Vegas or Atlantic City for
I'm,
a
I'm
boxing
telling you.
match and
I'm
to see
telling
some?
you.
And this is why I do not bring the
Yeah, I
green
know that's
room
right.
out. Who has
That's
to go
right.
to
You just don't
Vegas?
know what's going to be said.
We don't
You
know what's
never
going to
know.
happen.
You don't
But
know nothing.
but
Yeah.
No,
this
it's been
unscripted
great.
format is great.
Yeah, I love it.
Oh, awesome, awesome. Well,
I
thank you
love it.
guys
I love it.
for being a part, and we love you guys. We will see you next week as usual. Dr. Anderson, do you have any closing words you'd like to give us as usual?
Well, I just want to say that the Athens Ave is a place that we come where we can talk about what's going on in our world, talk about it and give a biblical worldview on things, on life, on ministry, as it's happening. And so, again, we want those who are watching, those who are listening, to give us, topics that you want us to discuss. If there's things that's going on that's being talked about in the pew, let us know because it will pop up on your view. You know what I mean? And then we'll see what we can do. You feel me? Go ahead, Spitfire.
I'm not spitting any fire at this moment. You caught me off guard. Look, I'm not a freestyle artist, even when you put me on the spot. Yes, but I do rap.
Mhm,
Thank you for
mhm.
plugging me. You know what I'm saying?
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. You said that's what we promote each other,
That's
right?
what we promoting each
Yeah.
other for sure. Well, guys, look, it's been another great episode of Athens Avenue. You will see us not just on this podcast. This is just the beginning. So I want you to stick with us. Please like, follow, subscribe, share, do all of the things. And we will see you on our next episode. Peace.